So for example, with Huawei, the American semiconductor industry lobbies the DoD and says, no, we want to do business with them. We know they endanger national security, but we still want to make money. So we should all be on the same page about this. Instead of trying to protect incumbent industries, which by the way, China wants to disrupt anyway. I mean, they don't want it there to be an American semiconductor industry.
Roslyn Layton, so great to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Great to be back, thank you.
I want to first start by just maybe highlighting your website, right? China Tech Threat.
That's right.
And this is something new since we talked last. You've done some incredible work around this.
Thank you.
Tell me what we can find there.
Yes, so if you go to ChinaTechThreat.com, I have a series of reports covering basically threats in information technology. Most people have heard about Huawei. It's not just Huawei. I think the worst thing that happened, people think, well, if we ban Huawei, then everything's fine. There are Chinese technological threats in the computers that we use and the printers we attach to the networks and the software and the services. So there's a lot of things, and so what I'm trying to do is pick apart those pieces one by one.
I read that a lot of state houses actually have Lenovo equipment.
Yeah,
right?
so
why would that be a threat?
Well, Lenovo. So this is interesting Chinese strategy where where the American companies, IBM ThinkPad, for example, they're purchased by Chinese owners or investors, which is a front for the government, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and as a result of that, all the laws of China apply to those companies. So they're not using the transparency, the disclosures, we don't know who their boards of directors are, and anything connected on a Lenovo computer can technically be transferred to China to review and processed by the Chinese government. And in fact, the contracts that US states are signing with Lenovo stipulate as much. They say Lenovo can take the data out to any country where they do business. And why would they need to do that? There's no reason. So if I go to the DMV, why does Lenovo need to take my data to another country or any country? There's no reason for that, but their contract allows them to do that.
So, but because any Chinese company basically has to give its data carte blanche to the regime.
Correct.
If it's not already working with the regime on that data.
Yeah, so to me, it's just an unnecessary risk, and it would be one thing if it was just a one-off, but it's systematically across at least 43 states in the US where they've signed up for these kind of agreements. And we're talking about departments of elections, it's DMV, it's family and children's services, courthouses, so all of this sensitive financial information. The irony is many of these states like California, they're making very draconian information privacy laws on companies, right? But the government, which doesn't have to comply with those laws, the state government of California, is basically opening the back door to China and saying, please come in and take all of our data. It's maddening.
It absolutely is. And then of course, we know that the development of AI is basically contingent on large amounts of data.
Very true.
You know why they might be
well, I mean, that is absolutely in the future, but I think today, so for example, there's examples of different pharmaceutical companies being hacked or financial services because they can run scripts against the customer databases, what financial products they buy. They can look at, what stocks and so on, different customers buy.
So this is a wild amount of free market research data.
Yeah,
basically.
They can just get it for free. I mean, so the one level is that it can be done by hackers, like the Equifax hack, which was Chinese soldiers.
Yes.
Now the Department of Justice is going after them. But the other part is this is willingly giving it away. It's one thing because countries do that. They try to infiltrate, each other's systems and. At the state level, it stands to reason whether our federal government's not protecting the state level, and even, on the federal level, we have major hacks, OPM is one. But this is a case where the contract requires that the data just be taken. Right. And there's no force, there's no,
is it that they're just not reading the fine print?
They
or
don't.
what?
Well, that might be one part, but they don't realize what the Chinese intelligence law means, and they're not connecting that Lenovo is a Chinese-owned company. Lexmark as well. They think it's an American company. It's based in Kentucky. Another one. These companies are listed in the National Vulnerabilities Database.
So they kind of obfuscate their origins, even though they're listed in.
And of course, it's not. They would not market that. I understand, but. We have a clear and present danger today with China on so many fronts. And we can barely manage the Huawei issue, and there's all these other things. How are we going to get around it? And of course, these companies could white label their technology under another name, but they're going forth supposedly as trusted vendors. But to me, I actually think the state procurement officers should do better. Their trade association is aware of this. I brought the research to their attention. I think that they're willing to step up. What NASPO is what they're called, National Association of Procurement Officers, they do a fiscal review. So of course, you can get this equipment at cheap prices because it's artificially kept low by China.
Yes.
They don't have to, properly report their numbers, so
right.
they can do cut rate pricing, and the Chinese government will subsidize them. So they're checking the fiscal part. It's a good use of taxpayers' money, but they're not doing a cybersecurity review.
Right.
And they should. And the other part is very difficult to do. And so I actually one of the things I call for is more support from the federal level to help the states do this. And also the communication. The Federal Department of Commerce, which maintains this master list, it's not easy to look at. It's not easy to find.
Where does one find this?
No, you can go to the National Vulnerabilities Database, nvd.gov, or the entity list, but you have to wade through so much information. It's like written in gobbledygook. Doesn't make any sense to people. So part of what we're trying to do with China Tech Threat is boil it down to help people understand. But at the very least, we shouldn't be willingly buying companies that are owned by the Chinese government. We shouldn't be buying their products at all. There's nothing good about that.
For those administrators that might be watching the program, and
Yeah.
I know there are quite a
Sure.
few, what are some of the most dangerous companies to watch out for?
Yes, well, I think Hikvision, that's the security cameras, those are banned in the NDAA. DJI drones, the TCL smart TVs. I mean, on China Tech Threat, we try to highlight them, and we're going off of the National Vulnerabilities Database where they're listing the vulnerabilities. So they can, that's one thing, let's prioritize the threats, So for example, the federal government or different branches of government, they will ban these particular products. There should just be an automatic memo out to all the states, do not buy. It's not that hard to do.
Right.
You could just post it on social media, check the So it's a sort of a...
And on ChinaTechThreat.com,
we organize that. We try to have distinct reports about the different issues. We have a report about Huawei. We have a report about Lenovo and Lexmark. We have a video on going into the Best Buy and where you can buy products with known vulnerabilities. So we try to make it simple and boil it down, and we do things one by one. It's difficult to take the whole supply chain, which that is what we have to do at the end of the day. But at least we can start reducing the risk on known things, right, that are, don't willingly buy those products.
I'm just going to reiterate this because it still blows my mind.
Yes.
By law, any Chinese company is required to provide any data it has within its systems at all.
Yes.
To the
Chinese
regime.
government, yes.
Yeah.
That's the Chinese law. It's not American law. But
right.
And I actually think if they do that, it contravenes American law. I'm not exactly sure on that. But so I don't even know why a state entity would be going into a contract where that would be the case. And so they don't actually realize that's a risk. And I think that they are starting to come to grips with that. For example, state of Georgia, very forward-thinking procurement officer, and they got rid of Kaspersky Labs. It's a known Russian service provider, presented a lot of risk. They got pushback, believe it or not. So it's interesting. There's a lot of established. So, for example, with Huawei, the American semiconductor industry lobbies the DoD and says, no, we want to do business with them. We know they endanger national security, but we still want to make money. So we should all be on the same page about this. Instead of trying to protect incumbent industries, which, by the way, China wants to disrupt anyway. They don't want there to be an American semiconductor industry.
Absolutely.
We're done. When 4G is done, they're out of there. They don't want to buy chips anymore from Qualcomm if they don't have to. So it's underscoring the complexity, and also I think this is really about understanding what does it mean to be for America. We shouldn't willingly be engaging in commerce that's threatening our national security, our long-term viability. And again, this is a real threat, not like on the left identity politics and pseudo-racism and so on. These are real things that can undermine our economy, undermine our safety, our privacy. So those are the things we should really be working on.
And so basically you're saying any Chinese company in your mind is a risk here.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a Chinese IT company, I would say.
Last question. Is there any specific kind of procurement that is, the highest risk in your mind?
Yes, so what I would say, that based upon the data we have, no Huawei, no ZTE, no Lenovo, no Lexmark, no DJI drones, to make it simple, that's what we've got to do. We've got to start there.
Okay. Roslyn Layton, such a pleasure to have you.
Great to be with you. Thanks again, Jan.